Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you about a very real, very dangerous type of person, the narcissist. And listen, this is not just some buzzword thrown around carelessly. No, it's a deeply rooted psychological phenomenon, one that has existed for thousands of years. You see it in mythology, in history, and most importantly, you see it in your own life. Now, you might think that the logical, even the moral thing to do is to call them out, to expose their lies, their manipulation, their deceit. You might think if I just show them the truth, they'll change. But that is not how this works. In fact, that is precisely the mistake most people make. So let's be clear, never call out a narcissist directly. Instead, listen to what both psychological wisdom and divine scripture advise. A narcissist is not simply an arrogant person or someone with a high opinion of themselves. That is a shallow misunderstanding of what narcissism truly is. No, a real narcissist operates on a much deeper, more insidious level. They are individuals who construct their entire identity around control, manipulation, and self-preservation at the expense of others. They don't just seek admiration, they demand it. They don't just want attention, they require it like oxygen. And when that attention is threatened, when their fragile sense of superiority is challenged, they react with calculated aggression, deception, and even cruelty. You must understand something fundamental when you try to call out a narcissist. You are not dealing with a person who values truth the way you do. You assume, wrongly, that if you simply explain the reality of their behavior, they will recognize their faults, acknowledge their wrongdoing, and correct themselves. But that is not how the mind of a narcissist works. They are not interested in truth. They are interested in control. They do not seek self-improvement, they seek domination. And when you confront them, no matter how justified or rational your argument may be, you are not met with introspection. You are met with resistance, distortion, and retaliation. Have you ever tried to reason with someone who refuses to listen? Have you ever been in a conversation where no matter how much evidence you present, the other person twists your words, plays the victim, or deflects the blame onto you? That is the experience of calling out a narcissist. When confronted, they do not reflect, they counterattack. They gaslight. They fabricate stories to make you appear like the problem. They will label you as crazy, overreacting, or too sensitive. They will twist the situation until suddenly you are the one on the defensive, apologizing for even bringing it up. And this is exactly why engaging in direct confrontation with a narcissist is not just ineffective, it is self-destructive. You are not engaging with someone who is emotionally mature enough to have a fair conversation. You are engaging with someone who feeds off conflict and who will escalate the situation, not resolve it. They will attack your credibility, undermine your confidence, and even manipulate those around you to turn against you. And if they cannot win through manipulation, they will use outright aggression, either verbal, emotional, or in some cases even physical. Proverbs 29:9 says, if a wise man has an argument with a fool, the fool only rages and laughs, and there is no quiet. That is precisely what happens when you try to confront a narcissist. There is no quiet, no resolution, no understanding, only more chaos. And the more you engage, the deeper you sink into their web. You will find yourself emotionally drained, mentally exhausted, and spiritually depleted, all while the narcissist walks away unscathed, often more emboldened than before. So what should you do instead? The first step is recognizing that you do not owe a narcissist an explanation. You do not have to convince them of their wrongdoing, nor is it your responsibility to hold them accountable. That is not your battle to fight. The truth is they already know deep down that they are manipulative. They already know that they are twisting reality to serve themselves. They just do not care. And when someone does not care about truth, arguing with them is a waste of time. Instead, your power lies in disengagement. When you recognize that a person thrives on control, the best thing you can do is take that control away from them, not by fighting, but by withdrawing, by refusing to react, by refusing to supply them with the emotional energy they crave. You see, narcissists need your engagement. They need your anger, your frustration, your emotional investment. When you react, they feel powerful. When you fight back, they feel validated. When you try to hold them accountable, they feel important, because your attention, even if negative, still fuels their sense of superiority. This is why silence is the superior strategy. It does not mean you tolerate their behavior. It does not mean you excuse their actions. It means you refuse to give them the satisfaction of engagement. When you do not respond, you deny them the emotional control they so desperately seek. And make no mistake, this infuriates them. A narcissist, when faced with silence, will often escalate their behavior, trying harder to provoke a reaction. They will insult, they will lie, they will create chaos, just to see if they can pull you back into the storm. But the moment you stand firm, the moment you resist the urge to defend yourself, they begin to lose power over you. This is not easy. In fact, it is one of the hardest things to do. When you know someone is spreading falsehoods about you, when you know they are twisting reality to make themselves the victim, everything in you wants to fight back. You want to correct the lies, prove your innocence, expose their manipulation. But what you must understand is that the truth does not need your defense. Lies eventually collapse under their own weight, and people who constantly distort reality inevitably reveal their true nature. If you remain silent, if you refuse to engage, their own behavior will expose them far better than your words ever could. Jesus himself demonstrated this principle in the face of false accusations. When he was brought before Pilate, when he was being attacked and ridiculed by those who sought to destroy him, he did not argue. He did not defend himself with desperation. In Matthew 27:12, it says, when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. He understood that no amount of reasoning would change the minds of those who had already decided to oppose him. He knew that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. This is the difference between strength and weakness. Weakness reacts impulsively. Weakness fights every battle, no matter how pointless. Strength, on the other hand, knows when to walk away. Strength understands that silence can speak louder than words, that disengagement can dismantle a manipulator faster than any argument ever could. There is also a psychological element to this. When you respond to a narcissist with silence, you trigger something known as extinction. In behavioral psychology, extinction occurs when a conditioned response disappears because it is no longer reinforced. Narcissists are used to getting a reaction from people. They provoke, and people respond. They manipulate, and people engage. But when that cycle is broken, when they realize that no matter what they do, they can no longer control you, their power starts to fade. They may try harder at first, increasing their manipulation and cruelty, but if you remain steadfast, they eventually move on, seeking someone else who will give them what they crave. The challenge is in holding your ground. It is in resisting the temptation to react when they bait you with their lies and accusations. It is in reminding yourself that your energy is better spent elsewhere, on your growth, your peace, and your purpose. Because every moment you spend trying to prove yourself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you is a moment wasted. And that is the ultimate lesson here. You do not need their validation. You do not need to prove anything to them, nor do you need to win their approval. What you need is to preserve your peace, protect your spirit, and focus on becoming the strongest version of yourself. That is something no narcissist can ever take from you, unless you allow them to. So the next time a narcissist tries to provoke you, the next time they try to pull you into their game, ask yourself one simple question: is this worth my energy? If the answer is no, then walk away, say nothing, give them nothing, because silence in the right hands is not weakness, it is power. Many people believe that confronting someone who has wronged them is the most righteous and courageous thing to do. After all, shouldn't we stand up for ourselves? Shouldn't we expose deception and hold people accountable for their actions? This belief, while understandable, overlooks a crucial reality. There are certain people who will never accept accountability, no matter how much evidence you present. There are individuals so consumed by their own arrogance and need for control that calling them out does nothing but fuel their manipulation. This is especially true for narcissists who thrive on conflict and who twist confrontation to their advantage. The Bible does not tell us to fight every battle. It does not command us to waste our energy arguing with those who have no interest in truth. Instead, it teaches us discernment. It teaches us that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is walk away. In Matthew 7:6, Jesus warns, "Do not throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you." This is not an insult. It is wisdom. The message here is that there are people who will never appreciate the truth, who will never value your words, and who will only use your attempts at reason as a weapon against you. Narcissists fit this category perfectly. When you try to call them out, you are not dealing with someone who will listen with humility. You are dealing with someone who will distort your words, who will twist reality to fit their own narrative, and who will even paint themselves as the victim in order to turn others against you. They are not looking for reconciliation. They are looking for control. And when they feel that control slipping, they do not reflect. They retaliate. God does not tell us to waste our energy in battles that cannot be won. He tells us to guard our hearts, Proverbs 4:23, to seek wisdom and discernment, James 1:05, and to know when to let go, Ecclesiastes 3:6. This is where many people struggle. They want justice. They want to expose the narcissist's lies, to prove the manipulator accountable. But what they fail to see is that some battles are designed to drain you, not free you. A narcissist thrives on reaction. They provoke, and when you respond, they feel powerful. They gaslight, and when you defend yourself, they act as though you are the problem. They manipulate, and when you resist, they paint you as unstable, overly emotional, or even abusive. The very act of engagement gives them an opportunity to further entangle you in their deception. This is why God's alternative approach is so powerful. It teaches you to rise above the fight rather than getting trapped inside it. Silence, detachment, and wisdom are not signs of weakness. They are marks of strength and discipline. When you refuse to engage, when you do not give them the reaction they crave, you are doing something they cannot understand. You are denying them control. This is what the Bible means when it tells us to be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves, Matthew 10:16. It means being aware of the games people play, but refusing to play them yourself. It means knowing the truth, but not feeling the need to defend it against those who are committed to misunderstanding you. This is where the greatest misconception arises. Many believe that avoiding direct confrontation means allowing injustice to go unchecked, but this is not the case. The truth always comes to light in time. People who manipulate and deceive eventually reveal themselves. The more you refuse to engage, the more their own actions expose them. They do not need you to call them out. Their behavior will do that for you. Jesus himself embodied this wisdom. When he stood before his accusers, when he was mocked and lied about, he did not argue. He did not waste his breath trying to convince those who had already made up their minds. He stood in silent strength because he understood something crucial. The truth does not need to be shouted to be known. It stands on its own, and those who are wise enough to see it will see it in time. For those dealing with a narcissist, this can feel like a difficult reality to accept. The desire for justice is strong, but real justice is not about proving yourself to someone who refuses to listen. Real justice is walking away with your integrity intact, knowing that you are not obligated to fix, change, or expose someone who thrives on deception. The alternative approach God gives us is not one of passivity, but of strategic wisdom. It is about knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. It is about understanding that your energy is better spent on your own growth than on trying to change someone who has no intention of changing. It is about choosing peace over chaos, strength over unnecessary battle, and discernment over blind confrontation. The real victory is not in proving them wrong. The real victory is in proving yourself unshakable. One of the greatest mistakes people make when dealing with a narcissist is believing that if they just say the right words, if they just explain the situation clearly enough, if they just show enough patience, the narcissist will finally understand, that they will suddenly gain insight into their behavior and perhaps even feel remorse. But this is not how a narcissist operates. They do not see conflict as an opportunity for resolution. They see it as an opportunity for control. This is why arguing with a narcissist is not only pointless but self-destructive. You enter the conversation believing you are having a rational discussion, but they are playing a completely different game, one where the goal is not truth, not understanding, but winning at any cost. The moment you engage in their battle, you are already at a disadvantage because you assume logic, fairness, and honesty will be respected. A narcissist does not play by those rules. They distort, manipulate, and twist reality in a way that leaves you exhausted, confused, and doubting yourself. Have you ever tried to explain something completely reasonable to a narcissist only to have them deflect, change the subject, or even turn the blame back on you? You lay out your concerns calmly, thinking that if you just make them see what they are doing, they will recognize it and change. But instead of listening, they interrupt. Instead of admitting their wrongdoing, they tell you that you are overreacting, being dramatic, or even outright lying. You begin defending yourself, trying to prove your own perspective, and before you know it, the conversation is no longer about their behavior, it has become about your reaction. They have shifted the entire dynamic, and suddenly you are the one on trial. This is a strategy narcissists use with calculated precision. They know exactly how to push your buttons, how to provoke an emotional response, and how to turn the conversation into a battlefield where they hold all the power. The more you argue, the more you fall into their trap. They do not care about the truth. You do. And that is why they will always have the upper hand in an argument. Proverbs 26:04 warns, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him." Engaging in arguments with a narcissist does not bring you clarity. It drags you into chaos. It reduces you to their level, forcing you to defend yourself against accusations that were never made in good faith. And once you are emotionally invested in proving your point, they know they have won. But here's the real danger. Arguing with a narcissist does not just waste your energy in the moment. It slowly begins to erode your confidence and sense of reality. Narcissists excel at a form of psychological manipulation called gaslighting, where they distort the truth so convincingly that you start questioning your own memory, your own emotions, even your own sanity. They will tell you that things didn't happen the way you remember. They will insist that your feelings are irrational. They will rewrite history in a way that makes them the victim and you the villain. The longer you engage, the more confused and exhausted you become, and that is exactly what they want, because a tired, frustrated, emotionally drained person is easier to control. When you are constantly defending yourself, when you are explaining and re-explaining, when you are desperately trying to get them to see reason, you are not strong, you are vulnerable, and vulnerability is something a narcissist will exploit without hesitation. This is why wisdom, not confrontation, is the key to dealing with a narcissist. And wisdom tells us something crucial. You do not owe anyone an argument. You do not have to defend yourself against false accusations. You do not have to prove your reality to someone who is committed to distorting it. You do not have to engage with someone whose only goal is to exhaust and manipulate you. Jesus himself demonstrated this principle when he was brought before Pilate, accused and mocked. He did not argue. He did not try to explain himself to those who had already made up their minds. In Matthew 27:14, it says, "But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed." This was not a sign of weakness. It was a display of unshakable strength. He understood that some arguments are not worth engaging in because the truth does not need to be debated with those who are committed to denying it. So how do you handle a narcissist without engaging in fruitless arguments? You set firm, unshakable boundaries. Instead of trying to prove your point, you simply state your position and refuse to be pulled into a battle you cannot win. If they twist your words, if they try to provoke you, if they attempt to turn the conversation into an attack, you disengage. You say, I will not continue this conversation if you are going to distort what I am saying. And then you leave. No further explanation, no justifications, no emotional reaction, just firm, calm detachment. This is not easy. It requires incredible self-control, but it is the only way to protect yourself from the mental and emotional exhaustion that comes from arguing with someone who is not interested in truth. When you refuse to argue, you take away their power. They cannot manipulate a conversation you refuse to have. They cannot twist your words if you do not supply them. They cannot drain your energy if you do not allow them access to it. And most importantly, they cannot control you if you refuse to play their game. The key to overcoming a narcissist is not out-arguing them. It is outgrowing them. It is realizing that your peace, your clarity, and your mental strength are far too valuable to waste on someone who has no intention of listening. It is knowing that walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. And it is understanding that the greatest power you can have over a manipulator is simply refusing to give them any power at all. The most powerful response to a narcissist is not revenge. It is not exposing them. It is not proving yourself right or making them admit their wrongs, because none of those things will ever truly happen in the way you imagine. The most powerful response is growth. It is becoming so unshakable, so grounded in wisdom and purpose, that their games no longer affect you. It is understanding that your greatest strength is not in changing them, but in changing yourself, not for their sake, but for your own. Narcissists thrive on control. They feed off of your emotional responses, your insecurities, and your need for closure. They manipulate conversations, distort reality, and twist narratives to keep you engaged in their toxic cycle. And one of their most powerful weapons is the illusion that you cannot move forward without their validation. They want you to believe that until they acknowledge their wrongdoing, until they see the truth, you cannot heal. But here's the truth. You do not need their apology to move forward. You do not need their understanding to reclaim your peace. They may never admit what they did. They may never take accountability, and that does not matter, because your healing, your growth, and your future are not dependent on their willingness to change. They are dependent on you. When you break free from a narcissist, whether it is a relationship, a friendship, a family dynamic, or a workplace situation, you are left with wounds, deep, painful wounds, wounds of betrayal, of confusion, of self-doubt. You may find yourself replaying past conversations, wondering if you could have done something differently. You may feel anger at their lies, resentment at their manipulation, or sadness at the realization that the person you trusted was never who you thought they were. All of these emotions are real. They are valid, but they do not have to define you. What defines you is what you do next. The Bible teaches us that trials are not meant to break us, they are meant to refine us. Romans 5:03 says, we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. This means that even in the face of pain, even after the damage done by a narcissist, there is an opportunity, a chance to rise, to rebuild, to become stronger than ever before. But this only happens when you make the conscious decision to focus on your own growth instead of the narcissist's downfall. The more time you spend waiting for justice, the more energy you give to anger, the more you obsess over what they did, the longer you keep yourself tied to them. They may no longer be in your life physically, but if they still live in your mind, if they still consume your thoughts, then they still have power over you. And that is exactly what they want. The way to truly break free is to shift your focus entirely onto yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a way that prioritizes your healing, your wisdom, and your purpose. It means asking yourself, What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I use this experience to become someone who will never again be manipulated, never again be controlled, never again allow someone to make me question my own worth? This is not about pretending the pain does not exist. It is about using it as fuel. The strongest people are not those who have never been broken. They are those who have learned how to rebuild themselves. And the most powerful form of revenge against a narcissist is not fighting them, it is flourishing without them. They expect you to remain stuck. They expect you to be consumed with anger, to seek validation, to stay locked in the battle. But when you rise, when you step fully into your own strength and refuse to let them define you, that is something they cannot stand. It is something they cannot control. This is where faith becomes essential. Proverbs 3:5 and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him and he will make your paths straight." There are things you will never understand about what happened. There are questions that will never be answered. But you do not need those answers to move forward. You only need faith. Faith that justice, in whatever form it is meant to take, will come in its own time. Faith that your life is not meant to be defined by the harm someone else caused you. Faith that your purpose is far greater than the pain you endured. And so instead of seeking closure from them, instead of waiting for an apology that will never come, instead of fighting battles that do not need to be fought, choose to focus on what you can control. Focus on your mental and emotional strength. Focus on building a life filled with meaning, wisdom, and purpose. Surround yourself with people who truly value you, who uplift you, who see you for who you are. Pursue your goals with relentless determination, knowing that every step you take toward your own success is a step away from their influence. This is how you win, not by proving yourself to them, but by proving to yourself that you are unshakable, by refusing to let what they did define your future, by taking every ounce of energy they tried to steal from you and using it to become the strongest, wisest, most fulfilled version of yourself. The narcissist does not get the final say over your life. You do. And when you realize that, when you fully step into that truth, you become untouchable, because nothing is more powerful than a person who has learned to rise above what was meant to break them and turned it into the very thing that made them unstoppable. The most powerful thing you can do when dealing with a narcissist is not to fight them, not to expose them, and not to seek their validation, but to rise beyond their reach. Narcissists thrive on control, and the moment you engage in their games, you give them exactly what they want. But when you refuse to argue, when you set firm boundaries, when you detach from their manipulations and focus entirely on your own growth, that is when you take your power back. God does not call us to waste our energy trying to change those who refuse to change. He calls us to wisdom, discernment, and strength. He teaches us that some battles are not meant to be fought, but walked away from. That real justice does not come from proving ourselves to those who distort the truth, but from trusting that truth always reveals itself in time. That the greatest revenge is not destruction, but flourishing despite their attempts to break you. Your life is far too valuable to be consumed by the toxicity of a narcissist. Your energy is too precious to be drained by endless arguments and mind games. And your future is far too great to be defined by the wounds of your past. The moment you stop seeking justice on their terms, the moment you stop waiting for them to change, the moment you decide that their actions will no longer hold power over your life, that is the moment you truly win. So let go. Walk away with your dignity intact. Choose peace over chaos, wisdom over reaction, and purpose over revenge. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not in proving them wrong. It is in proving yourself unshakable.